Hello and a very warm welcome. This is the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. My name is Justin Bemunyen Courage. Ogeriahe is the sign language interpreter. First, let's look at the headlines. World leaders converge on Italy as G7 summit gets underway. Conference to revolutionize African gas industry opens in Abuja. And Supreme Court reserves judgment in federal government suit against 36 state governors and local government autonomy. Well, thank you so much for joining us. President Bola Tinubu has been described as the first progressive president in the country who rose from the trenches in defense of democracy to lead the country. Various speakers, including the number 2 citizen, Kashim Shettima, said this at a dinner to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Nigeria's Democracy Day in Abuja. State House correspondent Muspaudan Wahab has the details.
It's one more moment to cap the celebration of an unprecedented democratic feat in Nigeria's history, the silver anniversary of the country's democracy. But this night, the focal point was almost eclipsed by the descriptions of the contributions made every step of the way by these men now at the helm of affairs.
When you were one of those whom Chief MKO Abiola set to talk to Abuja, and one incident that happened was that the security men tried to shove you away, and today you are the president of this country.
The speakers believe the story of a democratic journey in Nigeria cannot be complete without the story of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. These are those who know Asiwaju right from the streets, and perhaps more than the man at the center appreciates himself.
This is the first time that a true Democrat, a true progressive, who took part in the political wing of the struggle, in the economic, financial wing of the struggle, in the activism of the struggle, on the streets, on the barricades, will become the president of Nigeria.
They reconvened the Senate under Ahmed Ebute, the president, and declared Abuja government illegal. Can you imagine a group of senators sitting down and declaring a military government illegal, and was charged to court?
And the other man, who was not in the trenches, is now the second in command, who saw how Tinubu saved the country's democracy after its return since 1999.
When his contemporaries were struggling for a space on the dinner table in Abuja, and in the process throwing their colleagues, their allies under the bus, he took the opportunity to build an alternative platform for the Nigerian democracy. Without this gentleman seated here, Nigeria could have been turned into a one-party state. We owe him a debt of gratitude.
Appreciation for the eulogies, but then President Tinubu's attention is now obviously focused on unity and development of the country.
That is the reason that we say we hand over a banner without stain to our children and grandchildren. Is it not true that Nigeria is greater than any one of us? That the unity of this country cannot be traded.
Following the trend of insecurity and vandalism, the president harped on the need for leaders at all levels, including parents, to inculcate values of patriotism in the younger generations to maintain the peace and unity of the country.
If we gather as we gather here tonight, encourage our children about the charter of our value system. As they look upon me as a leader, to make the changes. What about us? The rest of you, the rest of your children making those changes too. What do you tell them? How do you teach them? Whatever we have to invest in our national orientation, I think we should do it.
And you.
And now, the journey of the democratic process continues. So also is the hope for a greater Nigeria. From the State House, Musbal and Wahab, NTA News.
Now, elsewhere, the Group of 7 summit of the globe's most industrialized nations opens in Italy with a deal to use Russian assets for Ukraine as EU traditional power recalibrate. Kolo Mohammed tells us more.
At the opening of the G7 50th Summit, participants reached a consensus on agreement on a U.S. proposal to back a $50 billion loan to Ukraine using frozen Russian assets as collateral, giving Kyiv a strong show of support even as Europe's political chessboard shifts to the right. Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni welcomed the G7 heads of state to the summit at a luxury resort in southern Italy, saying she wanted the message of the meeting to be one of dialogue with global south and unity. Beyond the war in Ukraine, Pope Francis will become the first pope to address the G7 summit, adding a dash of celebrity and moral authority to the annual gathering. He will be speaking on Friday about the promises and perils of artificial intelligence. He hopes to have the globe sign an international treaty at ensuring that AI is used mainly for good. The Pope is also expected to renew his appeal for peaceful end to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. This year's guests to G7 include Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, Brazilian President Luiz Lula da Silva, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. With Biden, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, and now French President Emmanuel Macron facing elections in the coming months, pressure was on G7 to get done what it can while the status quo lasts. In addition to the proposed US deal, Rishi Sunak announced £242 million in non-military aid to Ukraine for humanitarian, energy and stabilization needs. Washington also sent signals of support with widening sanctions against Russia to target Chinese companies who are helping its war machine. Italian Premier Meloni went into the meeting fortified at home and abroad after her far-right party had an even stronger showing in the European Parliament election than the national general election in 2022 that made her Italy's first female premier. Known for its evolving dog government, Italy is now in the usual position of being the most stable power in the European Union. Kolo Mohammed, NTA News.
New Zealand and China on Thursday signed agreements on trade and climate change, with human rights also on the agenda during a trip by Premier Li Qiang, the highest level Chinese visit to New Zealand in 7 years. New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon is seeking to balance rights and security concerns with lucrative trade opportunities offered by Beijing, the country's largest export partner. Luxon said, and I quote, "The Premier and I discussed our significant economic relationship, which benefits people in both countries with two-way trade in goods worth nearly $23.43 billion US." End of quote. The deal will see China extend visa-free travel to New Zealanders, while New Zealand will support Chinese language teaching and cultural exchanges through its Confucius Institute in the country. Now, in a move to further strengthen diplomatic ties with the rest of the world, President William Ruto received the credentials of 5 new ambassadors and welcomed them to Nairobi, Kenya. Kolo Mohammed tells us more.
William Ruto received credentials from 5 new ambassadors and a high commissioner at State House, Nairobi. The presentation of credentials marked the first time the Kenyan Defence Forces were involved in the ceremony. The national anthems of countries were played and their flags hoisted after each ambassador presented their credentials to Kenyan President William Ruto. Those who presented their credentials are Ambassadors Anur Ben Yusuf of Tunisia, Patricia Alberto Aguirre Vacheri of Chile, Luis Alejandro Levitt of Argentina, Romy Sonia Tinkopa of Peru, Sabit Subasic, Ambassador of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Ambassador John Thomas Edwards, High Commissioner of Jamaica. President Ruto said Kenya is committed to enhancing ties with nations with shared interest, and that Kenya particularly is keen on attracting new quality investment, expanding lucrative markets for Kenyan products, and broadening economic opportunities for the youth. He further informed the ambassadors designate that Kenya is a globally inclined nation, thereby asking them to feel free to do business with and in Kenya, their regions of origin notwithstanding.
Reflecting our shared value of friendship, cooperation, and mutual respect. In this sense, we will seek to strengthen ties in all possible areas, including trade, investment, agriculture, tourism, and culture, among others.
Mr. Ruto reminded the gathering of Kenya's military and police bill for Haiti peacekeeping mission and his invitation to the 50th G7 summit in Italy. Kolo Muhammad, NTA News.
Now back in Nigeria, Ministry of Foreign Affairs has refuted reports making rounds in the media that the Russian government is engaging African students, in particular Nigerian students, to participate in the ongoing war in Ukraine with the promise of visa renewals. A statement by the ministry spokesperson, Ambassador Eche Abu Obe, states that the Nigerian embassy in Moscow is in close communication with executives of the Nigerian Students Association in Moscow, and no reported case of recruitment of Nigerian students or other African students to fight in the war, as mentioned earlier. The statement therefore urges the public to disregard such misinformation and appeals to media outfits to exercise due diligence and verify information before releasing it to the public. Experts are urging participants to leverage the Africa Gas Innovation Summit's AGI's two-day conference to come up with effective policy frameworks to revolutionize the African gas industry. They are emphatic that harnessing the potential of gas as a catalyst for sustainable development, economic growth, and environmental stewardship across the continent must be prioritized. Lydia Samson reports.
This is a convergence of minds of collective industry leaders, innovators, policymakers, and entrepreneurs, all united by a shared vision, which is to chart a sustainable and prosperous future for Africa through the transformative power of gas technology and innovation. Chairman, Society of Petroleum Engineers Salahuddin Tahir, and other proactive young engineers across Africa are at the forefront as drivers of this gas technology and innovation.
We have enormous reserves of gas. Do we bury that and move to other cleaner forms of energy? Who will fund it? How will they fund it? So do we just bury that gas? We don't think so. We believe that that gas is the key to engine of growth for Africa.
His passion resonates with other speakers, both virtual and physical, at the inaugural African Gas Technology and Innovation Summit. For the Minister of State Petroleum Resources Gas, sustainability is no longer a choice, it is an imperative. Therefore, as Africa navigates the complexities of the 21st century, the need for a sustainable energy landscape becomes ever more pressing. With its abundant natural gas resources, key players say Africa stands at a pivotal junction and Nigeria must play a leading role.
The transition to a sustainable energy future demands that we embrace innovative technologies and practices that minimize environmental impact while maximizing efficiency and productivity.
We will always support any initiation in terms of working toward having a technology innovatively to explore our resources sustainably.
With the theme, Igniting the Future, Driving Sustainability in Africa's Energy Landscape Through Gas Technology and Innovation, in Abuja, Lydia Sampson, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. We now take a break. More stories when we return. To stay with us. And from this year's Hajj comes a notable symbol of importance, the Abuja Al-Bayt, the world's largest clock tower in Mecca. A symbol with a height of 601 meters, rising above the city and epitomizing spiritual connection of millions of believers. Journalists covering this year's Hajj, who are part of King Salman's guests, were honored with a tour of the magnificent edifice by the Saudi Arabian authorities. Tokwe Alabi reports.
Mecca, the holiest city in Islam and a sacred destination for millions of Muslims from all over the world. Besides the Kaaba, rises an architectural masterpiece, the world's largest clock tower, also known as Abuja Al-Bayt, built between 2002 and 2012. 98 million gloss mosaic tiles with 24-karat gold leaf adorned the external part of the 601-meter edifice.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
The highlights, a prayer room within the crescent at the top of the tower. The name of Allah inscribed on each of the 4 clock faces. 2 of the clock faces, including the inscription, is 80 meters in height and 65 meters in width. Many of the journalists here are visiting Saudi Arabia for the first time for Hajj and Umrah and are excited at the tour of the world's largest clock tower in Mecca. For some, like Islan Basar and Nur Liana, both from Malaysia, it is with nostalgic feeling, and for others like Sadiq Ilyasu from Nigeria, it is a lifetime experience.
So it's something like incredible, brilliant, and awesome. It's something that, once in a lifetime experience.
Standing here in a clock tower, when I see our holy Kaaba, I am so I feel like I want to cry.
My first time doing Hajj with my husband, and I don't know why, because I just feel like Allah accept me.
Peaceful feeling that you feel in your mind is just unique. So this place is actually always amazing.
Tower clocks have been a part of human history for centuries and have played an important role in communities around the world. These clocks are more than just timepieces. They are symbols of community and identity, while serving as landmarks and gathering places for people.
Visiting and standing on this clock tower, the highest in the world, for the first time is an awesome experience, including my colleagues, a lasting experience. From the clock tower here in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, Tokwe Alabi, NTA News.
We come back to Nigeria, where the Supreme Court has reserved judgment in the suit filed by the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, praying the court to grant local governments in Nigeria full autonomy. Judiciary correspondent Austin Anyebe reports that this was after parties in the matter adopted their final written addresses.
At first, this proceeding, all the 36 states of the Federation were represented in court. Justice Garba Lawal, leading the 7-man panel of justices, sought accelerated hearing of the matter, thereby giving an order to parties to file their final written addresses. Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, in adopting his address, urged the Supreme Court to grant all the relief sought, which include an order prohibiting state governors from embarking on unilateral, arbitrary, and unlawful dissolution of democratically elected local government officials, an order to withhold the funds meant for local governments in such states that unlawfully dissolves democratically elected local government officials through illegal Transitional Implementation Committee. Also, an order to allow the monthly allocation of local governments to be directly paid to them from the Federation account in line with the provisions of the Constitution as against alleged unlawful joint accounts created by governors. The Attorney General of the Federation urged the justices to go through his submission and grant all the prayers. The 36 states defendants in the matter took turn to adopt processes filed which include counter affidavits and written addresses as their arguments in the case in strong opposition to the reliefs being sought by the federal government. They urged the justices of the Apex Court to dismiss the plaintiff's originating summons with substantial cause.
Most of us in all the states of the Federation have contended that that is not the true position. And we have submitted our true positions in respect of all the various states to the court. So we are waiting for the court's own verdict.
The court of Nigeria has no original jurisdiction to entertain this matter on the ground that the relief sought are beneficial to the local governments of Nigeria who are not parties to the matter.
To grant what the AG is seeking, in our own view, though the courts are here to decide on it, will amount to amendment of the law.
After parties adopted their written addresses, which represent their argument in the matter, the court adjourned the matter for judgment, with date to be communicated to parties. From the Supreme Court, Austin Anyebe, NTA News.
The constitutional role of the judiciary in the interpretation of the extant laws promotes the rule of law and equity in the society. For proper adjudication over any matter, the judicial officers must be versed on the issues of litigation. Dele Atumbi of our Judiciary Desk reports on the latest move by the judiciary to make officers in the Temple of Justice to be abreast of development in the oil and gas sector.
The enactment of Petroleum Industry Act 2021 is a groundbreaking legislation that has reshaped the landscape of Nigeria's petroleum industry. The transformative act aims to revolutionize the sector, attracting investments, increasing transparency, and bolstering corporate governance practices in the oil and gas industry. The implementation of the legislation has far-reaching implications, particularly in relation to corporate governance practices and their influence on business performance within the Nigerian petroleum industry. Since human interactions are involved in extant laws in the oil and gas industry, disputes are bound to come up among the key players in the sector. To be able to adjudicate effectively on the matters involved, judicial officers must be well-grounded in the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. The development calls for capacity building for judicial officers on the role of the judiciary in consolidating the best practices and gains under the Petroleum Industry Act 2021.
It becomes necessary that judges must be educated to enable them understand the impact of the Petroleum Industry Act on the legal and the environmental landscape, its substantive provisions and other associated issues for the benefit of regulatory institutions, practitioners, stakeholders, investors in the sector, and the overall strength of the Nigerian economy.
This workshop aims to enhance the knowledge and skills of judges in interpreting and applying the Petroleum Industry Act (PIA) and other relevant laws, considering that the PIA has significantly transformed the legal landscape of the oil and gas sector by introducing new regulatory institutions.
The Petroleum Industry Act 2021 promotes inclusivity and encourages improved gender equity in the sector. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
The Director General, Voice of Nigeria, Jibrin Babandache, has reaffirmed the commitment of the agency in delivering on its mandate of projecting positive and factual narratives about Nigeria to the global community. The Director General restated this when the House of Representatives Committee on Information, National Orientation, Ethics and Values visited VON headquarters in Abuja on an oversight function. Chukunonso Wabwezi reports.
The Director General Jibrin Babandache, while welcoming the House of Representatives Committee on Information, National Orientation, Ethics and Values to the Voice of Nigeria, informed members of the committee of efforts of his team in repositioning VON since his assumption of duty in October 2023. He also used the visit to appeal for an improved budget allocation by the legislature for an enhanced service delivery.
We are in the age of noise, in the age of distortion, in the age of misinformation. No country can be well repositioned if its information management instrument, particularly the public brokers, there should be a buffer for the government if it is not funded, if it is not well positioned. We cannot achieve what we want to achieve without the support of the National Assembly.
Chairman of the committee, Olushola Fatoba, emphasized that the oversight visit is in fulfillment of the committee's constitutional mandate to ensure that funds appropriated for government programs and policies are properly utilized.
To ensure that every legislation, every appropriation, and all the parliamentary decisions and approvals are well delivered in accordance with the appropriate legislation.
The committee also visited one of VON's terrestrial transmitters at Lugbe, Abuja for an on-the-spot assessment of the facilities and their level of functionality. Chukunon Sonwapweze, NTA News.
And President Bola Tinubu equally congratulates Otumba Adekunle Ojo. I beg your pardon. President Bola Tinubu extends his warm congratulations to the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, on her 70th birthday. President Tinubu rejoices with the remarkable leader and her family on this momentous occasion. The President, in a statement by his Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Ajuli Ngelale, extols the former Minister of Finance for her service to the nation and efforts towards building resilient institutions. President Tinubu also commends the Director General of the World Trade Organization for being a worthy ambassador of Nigeria, exemplifying the grit, diligence and brilliance that Nigerians are known for. The President prays for many more years in good health for Dr. Okonjo-Iweala and her family. And President Bola Tinubu equally congratulates Otumba Adekunle Ojora, OFR-CON, on his 92nd birthday. President Tinubu joins family and friends to celebrate the renowned businessman and Otumba of Lagos on this special occasion. The President salutes the elder statesman, recalling his contributions to advancing the economic well-being of the nation through enterprise development, as well as by encouraging indigenous participation in critical sectors of the economy. President Tinubu extols Otumba Ojora for his statesmanship, life of service, and wisdom. And this is where we end the news. Thank you so much for being a part of it. My name is Justin Bemunyi. Thank you so much.